what are boundaries and signs of unhealthy boundaries, and what's called the false self as opposed to the true self, and setting healthy boundaries. We perceive a difference between ourselves and the rest of the world. This individual perspective is a kind of boundary that defines us from everyone else. So personal boundaries operate in both directions, the incoming and outgoing interactions with people. So the boundary is sort of that says, this is Daniel, this is who I am, these are my preferences, and this is what affects me and doesn't affect me, and this is what I kind of lean into and not lean into. So it's kind of it's an energetic and physical boundary. It's important to have clear and healthy boundaries to honor those boundaries with consistency while speaking your truth. And that was the big part, is that me speaking my truth and being okay with hurting people's feelings and doing my best not to, but realizing that no matter how I tried, that people were going to get their feelings hurt. I remember one time I had a real good friend. She kind of, like me, she kind of lived life on the edge, and she lived in this little cabin in the forest district in Santa Barbara. And she had a dog, and she was doing massage and just kind of living that free life. And she was having a hard time paying the rent. And I was feeling pretty flush at the time. So I said, why don't I just help you pay your rent? And it was like six or 700 bucks. And I said, don't worry about paying me back right away. I'm feeling pretty good. So just over time. And it was a couple years, and I didn't have any communication with her. And finally, I decided to contact her because I was feeling a little, like I needed some help. So I went back to her and I said, hey, I could use anything that you could spare, 20 bucks or something. And she laid into me. She thought, she called me names, and she thought I was the worst thing. And I can't believe you're da da da. And all this stuff was coming out of it. And that really helped me, actually. It helped me to realize that, I will continue to prefer to be in my heart. And even if I prefer to do that, there are still going to be opportunities for people to get triggered no matter what you say. So the best thing that I can do is to hold the boundaries in a healthy way and start following my own excitement. And that's the other piece that I want to share with you, how I started to heal my boundaries. Is I started to kind of pull out of being in obligation and saying yes to everything, or not saying no, or excuse me, not saying yes when I said no. Um, so I wanted to get more into, okay, this might feel selfish or self-centered, and in these days, in these vernacular, it would be called narcissistic, maybe. But I needed to stay in what is exciting for me, and that's something that my friend Michael Hamilton really taught me a lot: is follow your own excitement and do your best to stay in your heart. And when people have a reaction about me following my excitement, then that's going to be theirs to work on. And I'll do my best to not create a negative wake. So it's important to have clear and healthy boundaries, to honor those boundaries with consistency, blah, blah, blah. So here's weak boundaries leads to resentment. That's what I was feeling, is that I would be in some place, and I'm finding myself at some party or something that I didn't really want to be at. And now I'm resentful. Like, I'm resentful of them for inviting me, sort of. And I'm resentful of my own self. And if I do that enough, I start to hate myself. Why did I get myself into this position again? I don't want to be here. It's like, and then I'm stuck in a chair or against the wall going, how do I get out of this place? And the thing that I realized too is that it's like that commercial back in the 70s or 80s, that margarine commercial. And the woman would say, you can't fool Mother Nature. It's margarine, not butter or something. And I think about, like, all those times that we go to something or do something out of a little bit of guilt or obligation, and we think that we're fooling source. We think that we're fooling God, and like we're just going to fake it and just we're going to be there. Well, if your energy isn't clear, isn't a pure energy, that you are there with love and really out of no resentment and no guilt and no obligation. If you're there in a pure way, then that you can feel that energy flow, and it's a very It's an integrity. It's integrity with your soul and with your heart. When you're not there in an integrity, you're not really fooling the energy. It can't be fooled like that. So that kind of realization really got to me, like, oh my gosh, like I really need to be clear with myself, not for not exactly for the other person that's going to see that, but for my own integrity with source energy. Typically, the reason why you don't follow through with right action is you're afraid of the consequences, such as they won't like or approve of me, or I don't want to hurt their feelings. So, what ends up happening is that you dishonor yourself and enable the other. Over time, the individual personhood develops a strong identity, possibly with conditions, ideas, and beliefs, do's and don'ts. When there are weak or undefined boundaries, a person can feel taken advantage of or feel resentment for giving of themselves so much. That's where a lot of times where I was feeling, how come I'm giving, 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 and I don't get anything in return? And that's that just, it's an unhealthy, unbalanced direction outward and not really receiving inward. So it can affect that too, where we don't allow ourselves to receive, that we're always kind of like this. No, I don't need anything. No. And it's not really, it's not honest. It's not authentic. All right. Eventually, a false self can be created in order to please or fit in with others. God, I know that one so well, of being this inauthentic false self, and just putting on this face like I'm happy to be here and I'm not really happy. Signs of unhealthy boundaries: saying no when you mean yes, or yes when you mean no. Feeling guilty when you do say no. That's a sticker. Acting against your own integrity or values in order to please. Not speaking up when you have something to say. That was the other thing, and I think I know that I've gotten pretty strong at that. I think that when I do have something to say, um, I I say it most times, and try to balance it out with, does it need to be said? So that could be another weak boundary, that you just go forward and you just say these things and you get this thing and you have a reaction and you just say it and you just blurt it out. I've got to speak my truth. That's also weak boundaries, that you can't contain that and realize that may be a reaction that needs to be expressed by the egoic mind. So um, I do my best to keep in that, okay, as I feel really strongly about this, but does it need to be said? Is the only person that needs to hear this myself? Adopting another person's beliefs or ideas so you are accepted. Not calling out someone who mistreats you. Accepting physical touch or sex when you don't want it. Allowing yourself to be interrupted to accommodate another person's immediate wants or needs. Giving too much just to be perceived as useful. Becoming, God, man, I know a lot of these. Because then the problem is that if you know a lot of these, that you will attract the similar vibration. It's so frustrating sometimes when you realize that the reason why you're attracting people with weak boundaries or unhealthy boundaries is because there's still work to do. Ah, it's so frustrating. Like it just, but I have to say, if I'm really honest, let's be honest with the progress that I've made. Um, I see these weak boundaries or unhealthy boundaries very little, and it's almost like it pops up just so I can test myself, or I could like keep that practiced, keep it from being atrophied. So it was kind of right on, like that. Actually felt really good the other day when that woman showed up that way, and it felt, I don't know, it felt like love. It felt like I was really loving her in the best possible way. And I wasn't reacted to her. I wasn't shutting her down. And you know what? It really felt good in my heart. It really felt like, oh, God, that feels so good to me. Not in a egoic way that I've asserted myself, but more of a, God, that feels so good to my heart that I express my authentic feelings. And I don't know, it's a feeling that I had to get used to over the years, and now it really does feel really good that I can do that in a healthy way. Becoming overly involved in someone's problems or difficulties. That was the one that showed up the other day. Is it was a temptation to become overly involved in someone else's problems and difficulties, allowing people to say things in front of you that make you uncomfortable. This is the thing that that I've really been touching on lately is especially men that talk about women in a derogatory manner, or people that talk about other people. It's not mine to really jump in, but if we're going to be sitting together at a coffee table or something, and they're expressing something that doesn't feel good to my heart, in the past I would have been sort of, no, I just want to be peaceful and want and let everybody be themselves, and that's great. It's just that sometimes it pushes that boundary a little bit too much, and it's best for me and best for them that I assert some truth there. So for me to, if someone says something on Facebook or something, or some out there in the news, it's not really mine to could go jump in there. But if they're in my field and they're speaking in that kind of way, then it's mine to kind of assert myself there, because they're pushing a boundary there. Not communicating your emotional needs in relationships. That's another one. Right? How we doing? Oh, this goes by so fast, you guys. All right, here's some quotes. Let's see. For far too long, we have been seduced into walking a path that did not lead us to ourselves. For far too long, we have said yes when we wanted to say no. And for far too long, we have said no when we desperately wanted to say yes. When we don't listen to our intuition, we abandon our souls. That's why it hurts so much. And we abandon our souls because we are afraid if we don't, others will abandon us. Ah, that one hurts so bad because we sacrifice our authentic self. We sacrifice our hearts so that we accommodate other people. And I know that it feels so um, um, right to my egoic mind, to my egoic nature, that I must sacrifice myself to be seen here, to be accepted here. But that doesn't, it's not a healthy thing in the long term. If you want to live an authentic, meaningful life, you need to master the art of disappointing and upsetting others, hurting feelings, and living with the reality that some people just won't like you. Ugh. It may not be easy, but it's essential if you want your life to reflect your deepest desires, values, and needs. Oh, gosh, that one just really speaks it. So here's an example. Remember this one, Back to the Future. This scene from Back to the Future with George McFly and Biff are the classic examples of the pleaser and the bully archetypes. George just can't stand up to Biff and say no. I'm cracking up because this is like so over the top. He does whatever. Biff crashes his car, and then Biff blames George McFly for not doing that, putting too much wax on or something. I forget. This is also the masculine that has taken on the imbalanced feminine, which many men are experiencing now. The gift is that men get to experience the feminine, but now is the time to bring both the masculine and feminine into balance. So here's another deeper way of looking at the scene is, if you look at it through maybe God consciousness, what's really happening here, it looks like Biff is the antagonist, is the bully. But if you take yourself back and just um, ponder the idea that Biff loves McFly in such a way that he's trying to help him to express his boundaries, to have him engage in his authentic self. So Biff will do whatever it takes for McFly to stomp his foot down and say, "This is who I am, damn it." So on the outside, on the physical, egoic side, and just the three-dimensional side, and just the physical reality, yeah, Biff is the bully. But if we look at through God's eyes, it takes on a whole different perspective. All right. By letting someone violate our boundaries, we violate our own boundaries. This is self betrayal. If you go against your personal boundaries, you violate yourself. You abandon yourself and you allow self hate to rule the day. Your boundaries are defined by your feelings. That's the key thing that I wasn't really tuned into, is that my feelings weren't being addressed. They weren't being honored. There was a feeling inside of me that said, it may have been subtle, but there was a feeling that said, this doesn't feel exactly right. And I just wasn't tuned into it. I just didn't feel it. And I was just going with my mind. Well, if I don't do this, then this might happen. If I do this, then this might happen. And I was just stuck in that. Your feelings will always tell you whether a boundary of yours has been violated, no matter what kind of boundary it is. Saying no when you're afraid of the consequences can be difficult at first, but it will become liberating. Choosing to be and do what feels right for you is being authentic and integrous, of course, without intentionally hurting someone. That's the sticker that, remember, that's the sticker, is that we're worried about hurting someone. But if you do it from a love place, and what really works for me is to say something like, I hope you understand, but this is the decision that I've come to. And it really feels better for me to do this or that, or not do this or that. So it's not a, I must speak my truth and screw you kind of thing. It's a compassionate way of expressing that. The other person may feel hurt or disappointed, but not through your intention. When this happens, your normal response may be to feel guilty or take on their hurt. This is what you need to overcome through the healing process. Now, again, if we go back to the God consciousness of things, imagine that this person that is pushing your boundaries is actually here to actually help you evolve your soul. So they're going to do whatever they can to say, I really want you to, like, let's activate some healthy boundaries. Tell me how you feel about yourself. Tell me what your feelings are, and tell me what your authentic truth is. Tell me, I will get this. I may look like I may get my feelings hurt, but on the source energy consciousness level, yes. So if we don't do this, a false self is created. We talked about that. Look at this picture, you guys. Isn't this an amazing picture? When I was visiting Maui years ago, I saw these little kids. They were getting ready to do a hula, and they were all local girls. And then this little white girl was there, and that's the shot that I got. That shot speaks so much. Look, look at the girls. They're talking. I don't know about that howly girl. Anyway, it's pretty cool. All right, acknowledging ourselves. It's so important to be in touch with how you feel all day, every day. We can think of a boundary as an imaginary line that uniquely defines your person, your happiness, your integrity, your desires, needs, and truth. All right, 8 ways to set healthy boundaries. Decide what your core values are, not conditions. That's a critical step there, not conditions, but values. Just feel into that. Do a little meditation. What your conditions are. Like, your conditions may be, I'll never go to that restaurant again because I had bad service. I'll never open my heart again because I was hurt. So, but your values are, I want to live with an open heart. Number 2, make your decisions from feeling from your heart. Number 3, be okay with upsetting people due to your decisions. Number 4, know your limits, what you will and will not accept in a loving way. Number 5, let your behavior, not your words, speak for you. It's called walking the talk. Number 6, say what you mean and mean what you say. Number 7, give yourself permission to love yourself. Number 8, practice self awareness and presence. Right? Okay. Boundary check. Do I know what I really want? It's so funny because, or interesting, that when I talk to people about what their needs are, like when I work with couples, I'll need to ask them, what are your needs? And sometimes people say, I don't know what my needs are because I've been going outward to everybody else. And those are the unhealthy boundaries where we're doing so much for other people, we don't really know what our needs are. So find out what your real needs are. And you can do this exercise by kind of tapping in what you are now, how your relationships have been in the past and what they've been missing, and what you needed as a little kid. So, what your needs were as a little kid probably tie into what your needs are now. Do I let other people tell me what to think or believe and how to feel? Do I say yes when I really want to say no, or say no when I really want to say yes? Am I afraid to let people know how I really feel? That one just it hits me in my heart because I know that we all want to connect. We long to connect with people on a deeper level. Am I afraid of people thinking negatively of me? We do this mostly by feeling into the process. So pay attention to and honor how you feel. We can create very healthy boundaries, trust, and self love by clearly and calmly defining what we need, what we will accept and what and not accept. You'll not only begin to trust yourself, but your life can never be the same once you do. That's the last piece right there, is that when we have unhealthy boundaries, there isn't a lot of self trust or trust in the world, because imagine that you're kind of going out like this and it's kind of like an ungrounded kind of a way of being, that you allow people to tell you what's what, and you're telling other people what's what, and it's very kind of this kind of way. Imagine that if we got more centered and more present, and we knew ourselves authentically beyond our own conditioning, we knew ourselves more authentically and more in our own integrity, that we would feel a whole lot differently about the world. And we'd be able to trust the world, and we'd be able to trust the whole process and trust ourselves. I apologize for going a little bit longer. I hope you understand. I love you. Thank you. Bless you. Thank you for making my morning so blessed. I hope you have a most blessed day. Thank you.